Ladies, thanks for being patient while I took care of the rest of the Chapter 2, Part 2 test, since some students hadn't taken it before we went to long distance learning, and then I had to scan them all and figure out how to get them to you. So here are the long awaited answers. So I just want you to notice up here at the top, depending on what block you are in, there are some problems that were different between blocks. If you took the test late, you may not have the test that was actually given to your block. I gave everybody who took it late one specific test. So here are the answers to the first page for block 6. If you weren't in this block, your page will be coming up in a little bit. I think generally people who had problems with conversions had problems with conversions. The one thing that I did want to point out is that this kilometers per second, a lot of people were putting both the kilometers per second up here in the top, and then when they went to cancel units, their seconds were here in the top part as opposed to in the bottom part, and that messed everything up. I did have a lot of people telling me there were 60 seconds in an hour as opposed to 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. That was a silly mistake, but it was made by a lot of students, like I would say a third. So that was one other key thing. I think those are the main things here. So let me go to the next page. Number 6 is different between the classes. So again, if you were in a different block, I'll show your page a little bit later. Number 7, these are the same for everybody. The biggest issue that I saw here was sig figs. And then part C, rearranging this equation. A lot of people are not rearranging this equation properly, which I went over when I did the temperature conversion video that's posted on Edpuzzle. Number 8 was pretty good by everybody, unless they just left off a portion. Number 7, same thing. Number 8, sig figs was an issue because a lot of people forgot when they subtracted these two numbers that their sig figs, what their sig figs were and what they were supposed to be. And so we ended up with some of the wrong sig figs here. Number 11, it was pretty much all right or all wrong. There were a few people who kind of didn't put them in numerical order, so I don't know what happened there. Number 12 and 13 was pretty good. 14, there were definitely some issues with the lines here. So circles to represent molecules in solid, liquid, and gas, because all three are the same temperature. Consider how many motion lines you should draw for each substance. They all should have the same number of lines. So that was the biggest mistake here. And as far as the spacing, that was pretty good. Number 15, when we had cold water and hot water to draw in, that was also pretty good. There were some people who drew them different sizes, and there was a little bit of line issues here, but since this one was given 2, the cold water should have been given 1, and hot water should have been given 3. Number 16, explain why a thermometer that's narrow works better than a thermometer that is wide. So a narrow cylinder will show the change in volume as a larger change in the height of the liquid than a wider cylinder. Number 17, bridges having flexible connections. When they get cold, they shrink. When they get hot, they expand. And they get colder and hotter than the road due to the air underneath the bridge, and flexible connections allow for expansion or contraction without having the road crack or a gap. 18 was mostly good. A few people, I think, just got confused. Number 19, these 3 points were inconsistent with quite a few people. You can have atoms with larger mass, you can have smaller atoms so they fit more, and you can have a tighter geometric packing so the more fit, were the 3 things. Number 20, with the water displacement, mostly was pretty good. Number 21, this was different between different classes, so be careful, this is block 6. 22, this is still an issue as far as reading these numbers here. So If we go back to the way that we did at the very beginning of class time when we started talking about this, if you write down the numbers for the lines that are kind of surrounding wherever that meniscus is, I can see this first one at 62, 63, and then I know that I have to add one more digit, estimated digit. So I ended up with 62.5. Here, if I wrote down the numbers for my lines, 350 and 360, again, I'm estimating a digit to kind of count between these two, so that would give me 352. And over here, between 6.8 and 6.9, trying to estimate in between at 6.85. So I'm going to talk about the rounding. So everybody who's not in Block 6, take a look at this anyways. I will show your answers in a minute. Everybody in Block 6 had this set, but I want to go over this very briefly again. So if you write each of these numbers rounding off to 3 significant big digits. So the first number is 529.62. So if we want to have 3 sig figs, there are two ways to do this. The first one is you look at here, and those would be my digits that are going to be significant. If I look at the last one and see what's after it and say, oh, I'm going to have to round up, that would make this 530. This has 2 sig figs, so that's not right. So I would do 530 with a decimal point, and that gives me 3 sig figs. So again, if I look at this problem, I don't remember the number now. It was 529.62. So the second way of doing the problem is to put it into scientific notation right from the get-go. So scientific notation, 5.2962, and this is times 10 to the second. And then looking at 3 sig figs, 5.30 times 10 to the second, and that has 3 sig figs. So if you always put it in scientific notation, you will always end up with the correct answer. So if I look at another one, 0.008223, and I want it to 3 sig figs. And I can do the first method, look here, and I'm going to get 0.00822, and that has 3 sig figs. Or I can put it in scientific notation from the beginning, times 10 to the minus third. And again, looking at 3 sig figs, 8.22 times 10 to the minus third, and that has 3 sig figs. Okay, I'm going to look at part D. So 100.432 for 3 sig figs. Again, the first method, looking at the digits, 100, but that only has 1 sig fig, which tells me that I'm going to need to put a decimal point someplace. Here, that is 3 sig figs. Or put it in scientific notation to begin with, and that would be that times 10 to the second. 3 sig figs, 1.00 times 10 to the second, and that has 3 sig figs. All right, so even if you're in Block 6, don't stop watching right now. I'm going to go ahead and show the rest of the test, but there's a couple of other ones in here that I think will be helpful to you when I get down, because I want to do this rounding again for 1 or 2 in the other class. So Block 7, here are the answers for your page with the unit conversions. Again, the same issues. We're converting of miles per hour and putting all the units up in the numerator. The millimeters squared and centimeters squared, making certain that you had 2 sets here. 60 seconds per hour was not right. I don't know why that happened so many times. The next page, number 6, was a little bit different. 7, 8, all of these are the same between blocks. Here were your answers for 21 and your answers for 22. Sorry, 23. Yeah, I wanted to do this one. So if I take D for this one, you guys were supposed to find it to 2 sig figs. So if I do that and I take the number and 2 sig figs, 100.432, sorry, 100, that has 1 sig fig. And if I add a decimal point at the end, that has 3 sig figs. There is no way to take that number and have it have 2 sig figs. So I have to put it into scientific notation. So 1.00432 times 10 to the second, 2 sig figs, it's 1.0 times 10 to the second. So sorry about the poor handwriting. This is really challenging to do. So just so you know, whenever it's in doubt, put it in scientific notation. That's why we study scientific notation before we do all of these questions in class when we're talking about sig figs. Okay, so next test, block 8. Here's the answers for your first page. Pause the video if you need to look at them. Here's the second page. Your next pages were all the same. And here you've got your own set of elements. And the last ones are pretty much very similar to the other blocks. Okay, ladies. So that's chapter 2, part 2, going over your test. If you have any questions, be sure to email me. And for any mistakes that I made in grading your test, I apologize. But go ahead and send me an email and let me know, and I will try to make adjustments to any grades for any errors that I did make. So ladies, I will talk to you later.